So, as you can tell, we're off to a late start, right? And did you feel my anxiety kicking up in here? Did it? Right? Technology, always something about technology that you always have to work around. Today, I'd like to briefly speak to you on the. Take your phone? Okay, sure, sure. Under the caption of spirituality and mental health, we know that they go together, right? Absolutely. And obviously, at times, we tend to separate them because God loves people who have diabetes more than those who have mental health, correct? Yes? No? Okay, I guess you're with me. All right, so here are a couple of the objectives we'll look at today. Just looking at that unique, formation between spirituality and mental health. Understanding that there are techniques out there to help us cope through the tough times that we may experience in our lives. Identifying spiritual pain. Let me ask you, does everyone ever diagnose you spiritually? Ah, you didn't thought about that. Show how we can create balance because balance is important for us in our lives, right? So we're gonna do a real quick checkup, and here's where I'm asking you to just grab your phones, pop that out. It's a little quiz on mental health and sorry. Sure that's charging. All right. I give you about 5 minutes to get this done. So again, I didn't want to tell you how to think about this. I just wanted to know where you are in your own self-care. I think, guess what? If you die that day, somebody will preside over their funeral, isn't it? So how do we take time to take care of ourselves? That's important. Good. I like those down here. Healthcare illness is as prevalent to clergy community as it is to every other professional. We have some falls. We have some falls. Listen, if you don't know, I promise you. Not too long ago, I was going to this conference, and on my way there, I learned that the mayor, who was actually a pastor, just killed themselves. It is real. When I first started training mental health first aid, I've learned that 1 in 5 used to be in the United States of America. 1 in 5 individuals have killed themselves. And then before you know, before the pandemic, by the way, before you know, we're down to 1 in 4. There has not been a data collected since pandemic happens. So just think about that for a minute. I'm really going to jump through a couple of these slides because I know I have
I didn't catch what you said. You said 1 in 5 who commits suicide?
people in the United States that died.
Oh,
Yes.
so 20% of all deaths is suicide.
No, no, no. No, no. I'm not saying that's not a global thing. I'm saying 1 in 5. That's the research they had made. 1 in 5 individual would have killed themselves for mental health. Yes, that's what was collected. Due to mental health. All right. Let's jump to mental health first aid. Mental health illness, friends, occurs when our mental health is compromised or neglected for a long period of time. For mental health first aid, it is said that this was like a 2 weeks period. You can diagnose someone after a 2 weeks period of them going through a mental health crisis. In other words, if your father died, who say you can't cry with your nose not running down your face and you're not dressing up and your hair is not putting together? You can absolutely do that. But to how long do you do this? So it's crucial for us to have our mental health. Mental health is not a bad thing. Mental health Illness is where, when the diagnosis happen or people might be undiagnosed and just, moving around. But with mental health also comes spiritual health. Remember, I asked you about, have you been spiritually diagnosed? A lot of us are spiritually deficient, right? And that deficiency happened as a result of the detachment we have with our soul and our spirit and our God. We'll jump around though. Mental health versus mental health illness. According to the mental health first aid, it says that a mental health is, someone don't need there's not a diagnosis done. You're going through some issues, you're working through them, and you're making a pathway. Things are oftentimes more balanced with you when you have good mental health. The opposite is also true, that when you don't have a good mental health, you find yourself in very degrading states of emotional trauma. And we get ourselves not being able to work or function the way we used to. And that happens so many times, you'll not believe. Mental health, though, according to the World Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own ability, can cope with the natural stresses of life. Like just what happened to me here. Like, listen, you don't understand what was going on in me here. But I'm able to cope because I've learned, patterns and things that I can do to help myself cope through toughest times. Here's a quote I'd like to share with you. The last greatest stigma of the 21st century is a stigma of mental health illness. What does it mean to have a stigma in our community, church community? Anyone, what does it mean to have a stigma of, say, mental health in our church community? There's a label, yes. Yes. There's a lot of judgment. Ignored or minimized. So we could say stuff like, you're not praying hard enough, right? You're not trusting God, right? So it's important for us to know what this is in our own community. Spirituality, how do you define this? From the Oxford Dictionary, it said spirituality is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to the material or physical. The way I describe spirituality or defined it, it is an innate and intimate connection with something outside of yourself. Please don't kill me. This is a play on word, whether it be with a God or a dog. Some people, of course, doesn't believe in God, but it doesn't mean they're not spiritual, right? So I want you to understand that. Don't kill me. It's a play on word. But I remember this text where Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. What is our theme this year? What is our theme? I am with you. I am the vine, you are the branches. Can you see that separation in there? There's no separation there. The only way you can bear fruit is if you're attached. Right? And so we have to be attached to the vine. So let's look at some spiritual stigmas, spiritual and mental stigmas that we'll run into. Read with me. Someone will say what? God is punishing you. This is why you're behaving like this or going through these things. Next one. How can you dare feel depressed if you're a child of God? What are you doing? Oh, thank you. What does the next one say? They're terrible, right? But you believe me, these things are said. These things are said. You see a person who is not of the Seventh-day Adventist church? If you just baptize and give your life to Christ, you'll get over that thing, right? Next Come on, read with me. Don't we hear this sometimes? The father eat the grape and what? Set the children teeth on edge, right? Yeah, we don't. Anyhow, number 5. And so many times we use phrases like this, not even recognizing what we're doing while people are going through things. So at Adventist Healthcare, I've been with Adventist Healthcare for the last 8 years. I've recently left to the state facilities where I personally felt like it was a calling into deeper waters. I do work with people who are mentally incompetent to stand trial, and as a result, I don't want to say sentenced, but they're sent to the hospital to be taken care of. And how amazing and rewarding it is for me to see people who comes in a certain way walked out a certain way. And this is why, for me, mental health is synonymous to the gospel. Right? What is the gospel? It's the good news that what? Jesus saved. He will come again and redeem us. What is the good news of mental health? It is that recovery is possible. Can you imagine giving someone that hope? So body, soul, and mind, that's what we do. And so I want you to think about the idea of intersectionality of mental health and spirituality. Each of us are connected at our root by God, right? I don't know if you ever think of what a mental health equation would look like for you, or to sum up your life. How would you equate your life? What equation would you give? I love math in a sense. So I want you to look at this. What is your spiritual equation? Are you first human, then spiritual plus religion? Are you not that and you want to do something else, like I am spiritual plus I'm religious and then I'm human? I don't know how you want to place that. And this, I'm not limiting you to this. I'm asking you to think about, how would that look like? How would you see yourself as a spiritual person? What comes first? What comes first? People will tell you that I'm spiritual, so I'm human first. I'm human first with spirituality, but I'm not religious. You have heard that. And believe me, as a chaplain, I hear that more. Right? Not religious. And maybe you're trying to convert them like, hey, you need to be religious to be. But who is God? Is God stuck to a particular religion? And that's what Pastor Rick was talking about. Like, in reaching people, sometimes we have to take off the Adventist regalia, put it down one side, and reach out. Dr. Celeste, how am I doing with time? Doing fine? Okay. 12:20. All right, good. Mental health illness is nothing to be ashamed of. But stigma and biases shamed us all. Bill Clinton. You know that guy, right? Absolutely. I want you to just do a self-check. How are you feeling right now, spiritually? Just talk to your neighbor. Just say to that person, how are you feeling right now, spiritually? I'm helping you to learn how to diagnose yourself. Okay. All right. Maybe we need to spend more time doing this, right? All right, let's come back together. Let's come back together. Let's come back together. I am not alone. I am not alone. I am not alone. That means I can hear the voice of Jesus calling. Do you know that song? Who will come and work today? You guys, come on, you're Adventists, right? Okay, there you go. There you go. I love that. You ever heard of schizophrenia? You ever heard of that? Every one of us here has to tell our called story, right? Do you remember your called story? When you're called up to say, hey, tell us your called story. And don't you say that some of these stories were very strange? How God calls us can look very different. Some people might say, you sure it's God who called you? So I want you to squeeze this idea of schizophrenia into spirituality. What does it look like to have spiritual schizophrenic ideations? Do you know how many Jesus have seen in the hospital? Do you know how many of them I tell them that they're not Jesus? None. Okay, you can talk to me after about this. But schizophrenia is real. Now, here's something I want you to get real quick. When someone is hearing 1,000 voices and you're adding your own to ask them to listen to you, imagine what that sounds like. So we're going to do a really quick test, okay? Groups of 3, you're in a row, just find someone in the middle, and if you're not okay with that, just say, I'm not okay with this, okay? I need you to talk in that person. If you have a piece of paper or something, just fold it in a funnel kind of shape. Groups of 3. And here's what group of 3, just grab a piece of paper, fold it in a funnel, and I need you to get close to the person, and you're going to speak in their ear. Okay? Now, I want you to do... Or maybe we could just do one demonstration. How about that? All right, can we do one? Can I get 3 people? 3 people, real quick. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Good job. All right, here's a paper. So you know how we have the devil on one side and the angel on one side? Ever remember those little stuff? Talking in your ear? That's literally what we're demonstrating here. Where's the paper? Who speaks Portuguese? You? You both? Good. Let's do that. Yes. Let's do that. In her ear. You don't need a paper. I can turn it off. Thank you. All right. So you, what do you want to be? No, come on, choose one. Good and evil. Bad one. You're a good one. I need you to listen to them, and I'm going to give you some instruction for you to follow after me, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Just go, in her ear. You're a bad person.
Am I to tell good things, sir?
You're telling good things. Yes, Jesus loves you. Yes, Jesus loves you. Jesus died for you. Jesus will risen. 1, 2, 3, go. Speak louder. Hey, how are you today? How did you get here today? How did you get here today? Okay. All right, thank you. I think we got it. We got the gist. Thank you, guys. Give them a round of applause, please.
Can I just say one thing?
You're going to say something?
So I'm actually in the same grouping of you. Like, I've done clinical work,
Right.
and it made it so clear of a man that was in jail for 30 years that I was working with, and he was schizophrenic. And he would have moments just like I just had with you, pardon me, because he couldn't hear.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. So, here's what I want to say to you. Every one of us laugh. Let me ask you, if this was a person who says, I have cancer. You see, we're talking about stigma here. What we do, when we don't understand something, we laugh at it. We try to get comfortable in our skins. But imagine what this person is going through. I want to bring that back in because it's important for us to understand what people go through in their lives when they're experiencing stuff that are different and it's not the norm in society. These things happen, friends, in your church.
Yep. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
All right, I need to jump along. So think, for instance, if we think about spiritual schizophrenia, we think about people like Samuel. Samuel heard voices, right? And didn't really understood the voice and had to go where? To Heli. Let me ask you, who are you going to when you're hearing? Remember, we talk about, I am not alone, right? Who am I going to when there's strange voices happening in my head? Who can help to diagnose what's happening? Think about Abraham. I still don't get it, friends, but imagine Abraham is called to butcher his own son. In fact, I was thinking the other day, like, man, these priests they were butchers. These people kill more animals than they were praying for people, it seems like, every day, killing. But imagine that Abraham was called to kill his only son. How did he hear? Audible. So watch me carefully. How is this different from, I'm sitting across from a young lady, 36 years old, happily married, and then all of a sudden, this terrible illness befall her. And she's sitting across from me and saying, Chaplain, I killed 2 of my children because God told me that I should kill them. Otherwise, they would become like a Hitler to this country. How do you differentiate between that? Well, Bible tells you that my sheep knows my voice because I am connected to the vine. I am in a relationship with the vine. We did that activity already, but I just want you to think about it. Think about your calling. Understand that there are times when you have that call and you can actually challenge the call. Right? So what did we say happening here? What happened with Judah? You know the story. Absolutely. Like, Lord, let me just try this spirit here. Let me make sure you're actually talking to me. Can you wet it this time? And Lord, I know you wet it and I believe. But I just want to know one more time. Can you dry it back for me? It doesn't hurt to test the voice. Here's something I really want to talk to you guys about. Meditation versus medication. I've had people, pastors, who call me at the hospital and say, help me talk to the nursing team or the treatment team not to give medication to my loved one. Pastors, let's not do that. We can still pray and still take the medication. Okay? It's not one or the other. We can do both. God has given us the gift of medicine and we should use it for his glory. So here's some thou shalt not in mental health and spirituality. What is the first thou shalt not? Thou shalt not just pray. Go seek help. Seek help. What's the next one? Right. Don't dismiss the complaint that you have from an individual. Oh, don't worry about it. God got you. Minimizing it. Exactly. What's number 3? Oh, man. I hear the grounding. I understood. That is real. And number 4, give hope to someone. Give hope, not advice. But when there are thou shalt not, there are also thou shalt. So what are our thou shalt? Come on now. Come on, read with me. Next one. Yes. Uh-huh. Pastor, please let us get into the mode of referring people. Get connected with your community. You- right? Get connected with your community. Yes. Okay. Right. Yes, Jesus loves me. Right? Yes, he loves me. How do I tell someone that Jesus loves them? So it's a really good question, and I hope I had the time to even do a role play in a sense. But friends, we don't want to shove people off because there is that part of us that says, go get counseling. We can't do that. We can't do that. But if you listen to someone's pain and understand the need for it, like I said, if you have the resources in your community, like, do you have a clinician who is a psychiatrist? Exactly. Do you have a doctor? Do you have a dentist? Do you have connection as a pastor to these local communities where when there's something happening, you can actually say, I know this person? Let me tell you something. With Adventist Healthcare, I used to work with EAP. And I brought EAPs. The chaplains are always around, so people know us, they want to talk to us. We don't have the answers for everything, right? Likewise, pastors, we don't have the answers for everything. So I said to EAP, listen, it's important for you guys to come around so people can see you. And when I refer someone to you, don't let them call and you don't answer. That's why it's important for us to make that connection and relationship. Yes.
I was going to say, I think, to what Les was saying, in a practical sense, every pastor needs to be aware of what their skill level is. And if they then recognize that this situation they're encountering is beyond their skill level, I think the practical thing would be to say, what I'm hearing from what you're sensing, I might not be equipped to fully handle this.
Absolutely.
But I want to refer you to X, Y, Z.
Correct.
So I think they have to acknowledge where their skill level is, and then make sure they have the contact for the referral.
Absolutely.
And refer it, because don't leave the person hanging.
Right. It's okay to say no. I'm going to run away from the questions because I'm going to run into... All right, go ahead.
As she stated, we
Yes.
may know and we may have a referral list. But again, it comes back to what you said. When I give a person a referral and you don't answer the phone, you don't help the
Yes.
person, then they come back to me and say, Pastor, nobody answered the phone. I tried to call. I called in the morning. I called in the evening. I never got an answer. I've left messages. They never respond back to me. What do you say to that person then? Then you give them another person, refer them to that person, and then you get the same result.
Sit down and make the call with them. Sit and make the call with them. Make the call.
Done that too.
Well,
I've done that.
then we might have to change the individual. Because not every therapist is the right therapist for you. That's a,
Advance refer 982
Huh?
Is bad, just refer 988.
A
No,
988?
it's not bad. It's the
What's the-
national number that people
For
can
health,
call for
mental
mental
Oh, the
health.
988. No.
Because
No.
it's something that they have right away someone that is prepared to speak with, and from there they have so many others.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And
So
they
I
don't,
think this should be the best way.
that's the first thing. Please have that number available.
So let's, we need a second thing to. Exactly. We,
But I want us to get to that
absolutely.
deeper level.
We're going to go down. Yes.
I was told 30-something years at Andrews University, you have a master's in counseling. As a minister, you don't have the time as a clinician. So therefore, you need to find the resources
Absolutely.
and refer to the appropriate sources.
I agree. I agree. No, we have to run. I'm sorry. We have to run. Let me jump to a couple of these. Spiritual pain. Here's some things that we can look at as spiritual pain. Spiritual regret. Reluctant to the call of God. How many of us had gotten to that point sometimes in our lives? Lord, I don't know. Feeling of abandonment, right? You have much prayer, but no answer. Like, what's happening, God? We're not hearing from you. Insufficient spirituality. Do you know there's actually something called that? Yes. I'm not good enough. I don't feel good enough. I feel inadequate. And as a result, I don't think I can, And then the hopelessness. Woe is me. That constant thing from like Jeremiah. And then the interpersonal thing. All right, I'm going to jump through a couple of these things. We can send the slides to you all. You know that. Yeah, we can send the slides to you. Because I have to get through these.
It's causing us distress.
I'm looking at the time. All right. So I want you all to think about this for a minute as we look at Scripture. Let's settle back in our spirit. Jesus on the Mount of Olives. He withdraw and he get to this place where he start praying. Notice what happened here. Where's the text? Let's see. He prayed and asked, can this cup be taken from me? How many times in our spiritual journey do we advertise these words? Why me? Why me? Understand, when God calls us, he calls us to be in communion with us. And the road will never be easy, but it will be worth it with him. I sat for a moment and I processed this, and I can't say but how overwhelmed I am with the feelings I felt seeing Jesus prayed. This is the Son of God we're talking about. Pray until his sweat becomes like blood. That's anguish, friends. That's pain. They are people in our congregation who are experiencing these pains. And let me tell you, the sermon won't fix it. I had a professor of mine that, I remember this book, I was doing a research, and he said, he lent me this book. It's called Smelling Like Sheep. Smelling Like Sheep. Pastors need to smell like their parishioners. We can do all the online meetings we want. We can do all the greetings. We have to be in the space, the same space that they are, to help them through their emotional turbulence. Check out our friend David. I love David. I'm overwhelmed with trouble, and my life draw near to death. I'm counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one who's without strength. I am set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. Guys, think about that for a minute. And he says this, for you have put me into the lowest pit, in the darkest depth. Your wrath lies heavily on me. You have overwhelmed me with all your waves. You have taken from me the closest friends and have made me repulsive to them. I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dimmed with grief. How many of us felt like this at times? Ministry is lonely. Ministry is lonely. A lot of us don't talk to each other. A lot of us can't share with each other what's actually happening to us. Imagine you have cancer. You can say to your church, you know, pray for me. I have cancer. Imagine you have schizophrenia. Do you go tell the church, pray for me because I have schizophrenia? See? But that's the thing. That's the problem. We can't be open and honest to each other. And that's what makes ministry so lonesome. I am not with you if there are things that are hidden from our conversation. Come on, friends, let's pull it together. How do you alleviate spiritual pain? It says, be aware of the pain. Make spiritual assessment. Have you ever made a spiritual assessment of yourself to understand where you are? Do you know how important it is to do self-regulation? So what about doing spiritual self-regulation? Understanding how am I feeling this morning? From 1 to 10, how do I feel spiritually this morning? Because that will help me to connect with the person. If I'm a 1 being bad, and I'm counseling somebody who is a 5, what do you think might happen if I am not aware of where I'm at in my spiritual life? So let me work with you guys through this. So I believe just like a clinician, a nurse, a doctor will have a care plan for a patient. I think we can create a care plan for ourselves. Step number 1, we understand the signs and symptoms of our spiritual lives. Do you know what that looks like? Make a diagnosis. Who will diagnose you? Sometimes we can self-diagnose and we are so wrong. There's this thing called differential diagnosis. It's where, like the common cold and COVID, they have similar things, right? And you could be like, oh, I have COVID. But no, you get the test, you don't have COVID. It's the flu, right? So we can't diagnose ourselves. We need to find others, which is where mentoring comes in place, friends. How many of you are in a mentorship program in your churches? Notice the question I asked. If you were supposed to go on vacation, a funeral is happening at church, they need you to be there, but your family needs you. What do? We had a split response. Because people think like, I am needed. I have to be there. No, you don't have to be there. You mentor people. You equip people to be in the space when you're not there. So that you can take care of yourself, rejuvenate yourself, and get ready again to go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Step number 2. We look for the signs. What are the signs? Am I spiritually isolated? Do I have spiritual regrets? Do you know how many of us regret spiritually? We didn't take the call before. We didn't switch the degree before. I am 50 years old and I'm now just running to ministry. But you have had the call. Step number 2. What is your diagnosis? Do you know what that is? Do we call it spiritually broken? I don't know what that's going to look like for you. The lack of faith. What is it? I don't know. You figure it out. And then step number 3, we have a plan of care, right? We provide healing. We have this idea of spiritual brokenness. We realize that this is a possibility. And so then, therefore, we create a plan. Between 21 and 60 days, they tell you if you follow a particular routine, you can actually get to some result. So how do we get to the result after the plan? And step number 4, we do evaluation, right? Evaluate ourselves after everything is complete. Let me just say this real quick. Spiritual awareness. It's important for us to know ourselves. Know who you are. Know what your limits are. Right, sister? That's what you shared? Know what your limits are. Know what you can share and can't. So, here are questions I think that are important for you to just connect with this. What connects you to your spirituality? Who do you share your spirituality with? Where do you go for your spirituality? Let me tell you, a lot of people go to church. But guess what happened in pandemic? Church doors were closed. So what happens to you? There's no more spirituality in you? There's no more connection with God? Because church is closed? No. Figure it out, friends. Release your expectations. A lot of us are so connected to the traditional classical ways of doing things. You have to pray. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray. Please don't walk away here saying I say you should not pray. But sometimes you may have to sing. Because the prayer not working doesn't mean that God is not working. But the way you're communicating or the way you're connecting is not working. So let's not just stay stagnant. You have to do Bible work, Bible study. You have to do fasting. You have to do... No. How about dancing? Come on now. Come on now. How about questioning? How about spending some time questioning God? How about giving? You know? These are other things. Teaching. Maybe it's the opportunity you have to teach someone something that gives you that sense of connection with you and God. Right?
Can we get that slide back?
Okay.
That one. No, yeah,
This one. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, golf is an excellent exercise.
Golf is excellent. There you go. All right, so close it up. So here's what I want to say to you. We want to use the lens of hope. We tell you that we give people hope every time. What does hope means? Hold on. Pain ends. Whether you like it or not, this is what we see in Revelation, right? One day, pain will end. He that is filthy, let him be. And he that is righteous, let him be. Absolutely. And God will wipe away the tears from their eyes. And there'll be no more. Thank you. Thank you. If you don't have your hope thing set up, I'm telling you it's a sad thing. Okay, I'm going to give you something. Because this is what I want you to walk away with. When we see the word sad, probably as an acronym, this is something that may come up. Seasonal affective disorder. We have all different kind of, as the seasons pops up, we have different feelings and emotions that are populated, right? But here's what I have to say to you. As a pastor, as a chaplain, as a person of faith, we need to have our spiritual advance directive. We have to set things up before it happens. In the hospital, we have advance directives. People come in and they set up their lives. If this happened, this is what I want to have happen. If that happened, and so it is important for us to do that from a spiritual perspective as well. So with a spiritual advance directive, here are questions I felt like it's important for us to ask. When you feel spiritually overwhelmed, you will reach out to. When you feel spiritually overwhelmed, it would be helpful to do for what for yourself? When you're spiritually overwhelmed, it would be helpful if others do what for you. When I feel spiritually overwhelmed, it would be helpful for you to do what for yourself? For others, sorry. All of this is important. As you think about it, mental and spiritual hope and facts. Do you know, friends, that recovery is possible? Do you know that if we pursue healing and not cure, you can actually become well, and this is a second nature to you? Do you know that asking others to carry your hope for you is a helpful thing? And by the way, you can't give any and everyone. Listen, I don't ask every and everybody to pray for me. Would you want your enemies to pray for you? Huh? And not everybody who says they'll pray for you anyhow. So when you're asking someone to do that for you, make sure you know the nature of that person. You can connect with that person, right? Encourage others to keep focus on their well-being. People of faith can experience mental health and spiritual burnout. Do you know that? Absolutely. And God still cares for people with mental health illness. Can you say that again? God still cares for people with mental health illness. And so should you and me. It is Henry Nouwen who said this. It is precisely in the time of spiritual dryness that we must hold on to our spiritual disciplines so that we can grow in new intimacy with God. I'm saying to you today, though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you fear no evil. Why? It's not because the shadow is not bad. Hey, do you know what the shadow of death looks like? But that doesn't matter because God is with you. Here are a couple of resources that I may find some of these things from, and feel. All right, here we go. All right. Okay. I have 8 minutes, right? Dr. Silas?
Yeah, so what happens after this is lunch. We know you want to go to lunch. We want to just do 8 minutes for questions, we want to do like 12, 10 minutes? 10 minutes for questions, and then we can like have a prayer, and then you can leave, and those who want to speak to you, can speak to you.
Okay. Yes.
Just a recommendation. I know almost practically all of us are pastors. We have AM Well app, and to search a therapist is for free.
Oh.
For every one of us.
Nice.
What was
No
that?
matter the state, we can have it for free as well.
Do you guys know that?
What did he say? Repeat.
Can you repeat here?
For pastors, we have the AM Well app, and it is for free for us, and we can have a therapist for free. So
Part of
wherever
their
you are,
outline.
you can have access for it.
All right.
Also the men's health.
Any questions or?
AM Well is through our health.
Right. Yes.
Huh?
Some children that want to not to refer people to a counselor, and I was just curious why, because I've been privileged to work with many pastoral couples and members and counsel them spiritually as a therapist. And I was just wondering why you wouldn't send people to counseling.
If I did say that, I'm sorry. But I promise you, this would have not worth it if I would come here and say that to you. Because that's the total opposite I'm actually saying. Please find those people who are professionals in your area and send people to the right people in your community. Give advice. Pastors. Oh, I see. Yeah. So it was that context. Yeah. It's like, don't just not listen to the person. Just push them off to therapy. Because, you know, sometimes as a pastor, you can actually help that individual through that. Okay. Sorry for that misunderstanding.
Listening will tell you if the person is having a spiritual crisis or a, mental health crisis.
That's right. That's right. That's true call.
About mental health coaches in the church to help to listen and see if they need referral. The pastor doesn't have to be knowing everybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what Moses' father-in-law, what's his name? Jethro. That's what Jethro said. Listen, you don't have to do all of this all day long. You're burning yourself out. Like, get some help. So mental health first aid. By the way, if any of you guys need this to be done in your church, I literally offer this almost for free. You can contact me and we can connect. But we trained your lay people to be able to become advocates, and they can identify. You can't diagnose. Did you hear me? You cannot diagnose a person with a mental health, but you can recognize some things and offer them the support and help they need. All right? Yes, sir.
I'm saying it's one of the reasons why, there are reasons why you don't give me advice, because sometimes it can be legally sued.
Absolutely.
If you give the wrong advice. Number one. Another thing is counterproductive. People are going to do what they want to do.
Right. Absolutely.
Sometimes when we intrude people's life, in their personal and private life.
Right.
The other thing is that we pretend we know more than we really know. And these are some of the reasons why you don't give up.
Yes.
You may ask questions and then lead them to other people.
It's better for us to be curious and empathetic than giving advice. Because, again, people will do what you say. Do you understand that? And the suya. Yes.
Actually, as you recognize who's on the side, that someone may have a need for mental health professionals, but that person actually is not open. How do you arrive at
They will. Right. You tried. Exactly. You tried. And we can't force people. They have that phrase, you can bring the horse to the water. We can't make the horse drink. So you provide them with the information and the systems that are out there to support. Yes.
It's really a question, but when we say with the pastor, one of the things, especially with my wife becoming a marriage and family therapist, one of the things I've dealt with members is, I'll go see a counselor, but only if they're a Seventh Adventist, or only if they're a Christian, because if not, then they're going to tell me something bad or wrong. And I keep having to remind them, there is a code of ethics for counselors and therapists. Even if somebody is not necessarily a believer, they can still help you in a mental health issue.
Absolutely.
So we need to remind our members of that. You can get help from others as well.
That's right, that's right.
They are supposed to use your worldview. That's right. They are not supposed to inflict their worldview on you.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
I had a situation in prayer meeting with this lady was saying people with mental health is not a faith in Jesus. I had to stop it.
Absolutely.
I had to stop it and say, look, no, some people have mental imbalance, something going on with their medications, and we cannot say that because they're not where we think they are a faith problem or not faith in Jesus. They need some chemical balances.
And you don't know the trauma people had before they got there from you.
Exactly.
So many different traumas that have happened and compounded and become complex. So when we're treating people as a clinician, I have to think about that as well.
And we as pastors, sometimes we need to stop some of that stuff.
We have to. We have to step in. So again, thank you all so much. We have a prayer? Yeah. Oh. Okay. Let us pray. God, we thank you so much today for a beautiful reminder of how important it is for us to look at our mental or physical and spiritual health. We know that all of this come together only through you, your grace, your mercies. So we ask in a very special way that you continue to remind us to regulate ourselves so we can truly identify with how we are and how we support others. Bless us and keep us as we continue to go through these seminars, and we'll find good and useful tools to support us in our ministries. In your name we pray. Amen.